the Red Bull RB17's 15,000 RPM V10 is going to hark back to the glory days of Formula One soundtracks when these cars howled. But don't just take my word for it. Listen to this. We'll be back on the engine dyno later to hear the entire V10 test procedure and speak to the boss of Cosworth about how difficult a customer Adrian Newey actually is.
And at that point, he has very cleverly pushed you to the absolute limit of the ability of what you know how to do.
Plus, we'll reveal all the different engine configurations that Adrian considered before settling on a V10. We'll also give you a world-exclusive first look at the RB17 in its finished form. We'll see the very first carbon chassis too, and I'll even try it out for size. Try and not mess up this very expensive model. First, come with me for an exclusive tour inside Red Bull Advanced Technologies, where the rest of the RB17 is being built, led by Technical Director and ex-F1 engineer, Rob Gray. Okay, Rob, thank you so much for having us down to your office. It is surgically clean. How long since you moved in down here?
Well, first of all, I'm welcome. It's really great to have you guys here.
Thank you.
So we moved into this building just over 12 months ago, but this part of it, the actual production area and the prototyping area, we've only been in here since August. So yeah, it's all pretty new.
Yeah, I could just hear from the angle grinder, they are still building some of it. Can you just talk us through a little bit what Red Bull Advanced Technologies does and how that differs from the other parts of Red Bull racing that are on this campus?
Yeah, sure. So Red Bull Advanced Technologies was formed in 2014 when the late founder of Red Bull, Mr. Mateschitz, came and saw everything we were doing on the F1 side and said, isn't it a shame that we don't use that engineering and all that lovely kit elsewhere? And so Red Bull Advanced Technologies was formed really with the mission of taking that technology out into the world. So here on campus, as you say, we have Red Bull F1, as in chassis F1, so that's where the cars are actually designed, built, and then the race team operate from. But then we also have our new powertrains division, and that's where we're building the engine for F1 in 2026.
Okay, and then obviously we need to talk about this spaceship behind you, the RB17. Now, the important thing to know about this car is this is not something that was simply sketched by Adrian Newey and then is being sort of farmed out for some race team somewhere to build. All of this car is going to come to life basically in this building besides the engine, which we've seen in Cosworth just yesterday. So it's all coming to life very locally, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, certainly, I'm not going to say 100%. Is here because, on the F1 side, we build an awful lot of the car here on campus, but we also then use a network of trusted suppliers to make other parts.
Right.
And it's very much the same principle. But the core of the car, what we call the DNA of the car, is being built here in this building. So yeah, we've got composite laminating where we're building the chassis, and then you'll see the assembly areas where we're putting other parts together. And so yeah, a lot of it is actually coming together here.
Excellent. Let's just take a little walk down this. I know this is the model that we've seen before, but I'm guessing the car's evolved hugely since we first clapped eyes on it a couple of years ago.
Yeah, sure. So this is fundamentally the same car that we launched at Goodwood 2 years ago, 18 months ago. And then we had it in Monaco this year in the white. And yeah, the styling has evolved enormously from it, and then the engineering as well. And for example, one of Adrian's last changes that he put onto us, we signed off all the externals with Adrian before he left. But he moved the exhaust up onto the spine of the engine cover.
That sounds like quite a big change.
Quite a big change, and led to a lot of work then to make the thermal side of it actually function.
Yeah.
Stop things from getting too hot, stop things from catching fire, and generally give us a car that actually works, functions.
Yeah. Now, brilliantly, we'll be able to put on the screen the latest renders, the very kind of up-to-date imagery of what the car's looking like now and the evolution, so people will be able to spot.
Yeah, and that is the images you've got, that is what the car will look like.
Yeah.
It's not just a step in time, that is what we're building.
And here are those renderings. The car we saw back in 24 was a snapshot. That was where the RB17 was when Red Bull decided to build a full-scale model, and by the time the world saw it, it was already way out of date given the speed of development. Immediately you'll spot changes, like those hockey stick LED front lights, which give the RB17 more of a face. In fact, many of the surfaces are now riddled with intakes and vents and downwash ramps for thermal management and peak aerodynamic performance. The engine cover has sprouted a massive sailfish-like fin. There too is that new centrally mounted spinal exhaust that was one of Adrian Newey's final changes. It also now sports real-world practical considerations that weren't seen on the original model. Things like door mirrors and a windscreen wiper. Feeling brave in the wet, are we? Size-wise, the RB17 is also going to be very slightly smaller than the original model, though its footprint still matches a modern Formula 1 car, which is huge. We'll show you around the interior in a moment, but for now, let's get back to our tour with Rob. And can you just talk us through, so what's the relationship with Adrian now? Is he kind of fully off the project, or does he still consult on it, or is he not allowed to because he's now Aston Martin?
No, he's allowed to. He's still interested in what's going on. He still has a bit of input. But to an extent, we got a lot of what we needed from him, in that we know his intent. We know what he wants the car to look like.
Yeah.
If there's ever any questions, he's on the end of the phone. We can talk to him,
right,
and get his thoughts on it. But a lot of it is making his vision real, and we can kind of just get on with that. Adrian he can do everything on the car. You know, I'm pretty sure he could design every part on the car, and he has done in his history.
Yeah.
But at the same time, he's always had a team around him to turn his early concept into reality.
Indeed. Well, he's going to be very busy now because he's got a Formula 1 team to run. Speaking of Formula 1, can we just have a look at this beauty down here? I know we're here to see RB17, but this is the start of RB, I guess, isn't it? This is an RB1?
So this is an RB1, so the first Red Bull F1 car. And we have it in here just because it's the only other Red Bull with a Cosworth engine.
Right.
Because when Red Bull started, we started with the Cosworth, and it's a V10 engine as well. So actually we see quite a parallel between these two cars, and we quite like that story.
Yeah, and your kind of personal history with this car, so your F1 history goes back to even before Red Bull to Jaguar, and then of course Red Bull evolved from that and became the championship-winning colossus it is now.
Yes, I've been with the team for 23 years now, I think. And so this car, I was working in stress analysis, so...
what would your job have been then?
Well, there were only two of us doing the stress analysis on the car at this time,
yeah.
Myself and a chap called Lewis, and I think he pretty much did the chassis and the gearbox, and I picked up all the other bits. So, I mean, everything from the uprights, the wheel nuts, all the suspension, all of these bits. And yes, it was. They were much simpler cars back then.
Yeah, I mean, and so much smaller and sounded amazing, but we got a preview of what that sounded like yesterday, and I think you're on the right track with bringing this era of F1 into a new generation. So how many people, there was a handful of people almost working on this, how many people are working on this site now?
So in the advanced technologies part, there's about 160 of us at the moment.
Yeah.
And that needs to get a bit bigger as we go from building prototypes to actually building real cars in volume. I mean, we're only building 50 cars, but that's still quite a scary number of parts when you think that we're building it in the F1 way.
Yeah.
So it's like you can say 50 is very low for a road car manufacturer, but on the F1 side, you only build 5 chassis a year typically, and so we're 10 times that.
Yeah. Well, I think we should go and see what they're getting up to. Where should we go first?
Okay. Well, let's go and have a look at the chassis first, shall we? Where we've actually got a chassis that's in inspection that's come out of the autoclave. You can see them doing all the measurements and see what they're up to.
All right, let's go and fit my seat.
Okay.
First up, the core of the RB17 then, its chassis and safety cell tub. So first things first, I didn't know the RB17 was going to be made out of MDF. What are we looking at here?
So this is our seating bug. Now it's an engineering tool. It's not intended to be beautiful and polished, but it's basically what we're using to sort out all of the cockpit layout, details such as, can you reach the door handle to shut the door?
Right.
Where we're putting switches, what the steering wheel layout looks like. All of the details that need to be right, that actually are very difficult to do in the virtual world. And so actually, an MDF model is the ideal tool.
Oh, and it's interesting, that even in a world of VR goggles and Apple Vision Pro and all this stuff, there's just no substitute for having a one-to-one scale model and even putting in these tops of the wheel arch surfaces. So I guess you can sight, is that the visibility?
Yeah, that's for the vision angle. So that when you're sat in the driver's seat, what can you see? How much of the apex can you see?
Of course, yeah. So less about blind spots when you park in and more about can you spot the entry to stow when you're flat out. Am I allowed to have a sit inside?
Yeah, you can have a sit inside.
Right, let's jump in. Now, am I allowed to stand on the seat?
You are, yeah. Yeah, I mean, the trick is to step into it, and so you're standing up, and then slide down. Yep, just take the steering wheel off.
Okay, wheel off. Try and not mess up this very expensive model. Okay, so stand on the seat and then simply lower self in.
Slide down.
That is easier than a Valkyrie, I think.
Well, that's why, so we changed the way the doors open compared to Valkyrie.
Yeah, you haven't got those sort of lids.
Gull wing doors on Valkyrie, whereas these are hinged on the A-pillar, so it gives you that ability to stand on the seat.
Yeah, so now I'm in here, I've got that classic...
Do you want the wheel?
I would love the wheel, thank you. I can feel I've got that classic Formula One prototype driving position. My backside's right down, my legs are up, and I actually feel quite cozy.
Yes.
They're amazingly comfortable. So what would you learn from this model? You know, button, position, mirrors?
Everything from what can you see out the front of the car, and are we happy with that, through to where you've got the center console there, so we're mocking up the switches on the center console, making sure that you can physically see them from where you're sat, making sure that you can actually reach them, turn all the knobs and dials, and then things like where we're putting the door handles. So you can see on the door here, we've got where we're going to have handles and quick releases. And yeah, just checking that everything actually works.
Really interesting as well that you've gone, it looks like, for full physical switchgear. I can't really see anything that looks like it's going to be haptic or touch sensitive in here. I guess that's a conscious choice.
No, there's nothing that's on a touch screen. There is a screen, but the screen is information display only.
Yeah, I mean, that's very Formula One.
Yeah.
And I wish the rest of the car industry would catch on. Hopefully they will. This structure next to me, is this for kind of crash safety?
Yeah, so that's a Le Mans hypercar spec head padding.
Yeah.
So it's very much the same as a Le Mans hypercar, where you have the head padding all round, so that if you have a side impact, your head's very protected.
Understood. Yeah, it's very cozy, and I could almost nod off in here, not because you're boring me, but because it's nice and comfy. But I think we should now go and see what this looks like when it's made out of carbon. Just give me sort of 20 minutes to get out. Now, in the interlude, while I clamber out, here's how that MDF buck will look when it's in a real car. Everything will be worked via tactile, physical controls that are simple to operate, even when you're wearing fireproof gloves. Handy when you're busy pulling 5G thanks to 1,700 kilograms of fan-assisted downforce. Oh, just one more question about the interior. All the Formula One guys, they have a bespoke seat fitting, don't they, where they almost sit in sort of plasticine or papier-mâché and it moulds to their backside. Does everyone who buys an RB17 get the same treatment?
They will, but there will be a more generic seat that if you want to swap drivers around, you can adapt the seat to different drivers. Right. But then the owners have the option of having their own customised seat. So
you will get that full bespoke F1 experience. Very cool. Right, let's go and see what this looks like when it's finished. And here we have one you literally made earlier.
Yep.
So this is the first RB17 tub.
The first chassis, yeah, chassis 1.
This is very cool. I'm impressed to see it has matching herringbone carbon weave. Is that actually for strength, or do people just expect that when they're paying £5 million for a car?
I think it's more just expected, and it's one of those things where when it can be done without any detriment to weight or anything like that, then we'll do it. Just as a matter of course.
I see. Now, it was fascinating that when we came in, one of your colleagues was scanning this with what looked like a giant supermarket laser. What was he doing?
So he's literally scanning the surfaces, bringing them into the CAD model, so that you can compare how the reality of what we've just spent the last however many weeks making compares to what the design intent was. Right. So it's an inspection process, making sure it's all, and it's really so that you know that when you then start bolting things to it, everything's going to fit together and it's actually going to work.
So all those tolerances are absolutely spot on. Looking at it here, you really get a sense of the classic Adrian Newey tightness of packaging, you know, this very pointed nose. It looks like the driver and passenger's legs will be kind of skewed together to a point. Is that right?
Yeah, and the driver and passenger sit staggered. So the driver's ahead of the passenger.
Right.
Passenger's sort of not massively staggered, but a kind of a head length backwards. And so yeah, your legs are poking slightly towards the centre line, but it's a small angle.
Yeah, but that's an improvement, I guess, over the Aston Valkyrie, where the seats are pretty much side by side.
Yeah, I mean, it feels more spacious than a Valkyrie because you're not going shoulder to shoulder with your passenger.
Yeah.
Because your shoulders don't overlap.
Yeah. So there you go. This is the practical one. I just want to mention as well this what looks like a nose cone over here.
Yeah, it's a nose cone.
Can you just talk us through the sort of crash test that this thing has to go through? Presumably, it does have to comply with racing regulations.
Well, it doesn't have to,
right.
But we needed to design it to some set of standards.
Yeah.
And so we chose to design it to be compliant with the Le Mans hypercar regulations because that felt like the most relevant set of regulations that we could use as a baseline and a line in the sand to aim for.
Yeah. So can you confirm now this will go racing at Le Mans?
I can't, unfortunately.
You need a V10 at Le Mans. That's a shame.
I mean, we'd love to, but
yeah.
Nothing I can confirm at the
Strictly
moment.
for customers at the moment. I guess the sad thing is you've got this beautiful carbon and you will have to destroy how many of these in order to satisfy your own self-imposed crash test?
Well, hopefully only one. So
really?
hopefully we'll crash this one, and then we get a pass on the load trace, and then we're good to go.
Right, so this one will be sacrificed to make sure that all the other RB17s can live.
Exactly.
Right, where next?
Let's go and see where they're putting some mechanical bits together, so sub-assembly.
Let's go. So what does a £5 million track car's gearbox look like? So you've just seen the very first RB17 chassis, and here we have the very first RB17 gearbox, and Rob is now going to give a dummy's guide to how you build, well, a dog box which knows where its own dog teeth are.
Yeah.
Can you please put that into terms that I might be able to understand?
Yeah, certainly. So, I mean, traditional dog box, so you've got when we talk about dogs, we're talking about these lumps on the gear.
Right.
And so when you...
Dogs means lumps.
Well,
With you so far?
Yeah. I don't know why they're called dogs, actually. It always happens. You have the
Someone will write in from the comments.
Yeah, so you have the dog ring that has
Yep.
a set of dogs on it, and then the dogs on the gear. And so when you engage a gear, effectively you're engaging that dog ring into there, and then the dogs drive together. Now, we can see this on here as well. So you can see that when I rotate this part, the barrel, you can see that it's moving the selector forks.
Yeah.
And they hold this dog ring, and you can see them going into and out of gear. So that's us going up through the gearbox.
Okay.
Now the clever bit is that the software and the electronic system, the sensors, they learn where all of these are on all of the different gears. So when the driver requests a gear shift in a traditional dog box, you can engage and you can go what we call dog to dog. So you're straight onto the faces of the dog and you don't get drive and you have to try again. So that's what you're used to experience when you're shifting on your sequential gearbox in like an old F1 car or some of the more recent Formula 3000, that kind of thing. So you can get dog to dog, but you can also get what we call a partial engagement. So if the dog's just going in and it just takes up drive, then it can just land on the corners, and that can take the corner of the dog off, and then you've got debris in the gearbox, and it doesn't last that long.
Yeah.
So the clever bit is that we use what we call dog timing software and sensors, so that we learn where all these dogs are. So when the driver requests a gear shift, the software is saying, okay, well, where are my dogs? And it waits till you've got a nice clean window to insert into, and then it takes up drive. And that way, it's a few milliseconds of delay, so it's completely transparent to the driver, but that means that we never get that dog-to-dog situation, so we don't damage the dogs, so we get a long-lasting gearbox, and it also means that we get much faster changes than you traditionally would from a single barrel gearbox.
So that's a complete win-win for durability and for lap time. How similar is this to Formula One gearbox technology? Are you allowed to use this?
Yeah, so it's similar. I mean, Formula One have gone to the twin barrel gearbox typically, so that's where you can engage the higher gear before you disengage the lower gear.
Right.
Now that for us was too high a risk system for a car that we're selling and wanting not to have a massively high service interval. And so this is kind of, it's F1 tech and the software that does the dog detection and works out where all the dogs are, that's fully come out of F1, but we haven't gone that last step of F1 performance.
I see. But even though this looks like a beautiful piece of sculpture, and yet it's so small, I hope the scale of it comes across. So there's 1,200 horsepower effectively going through these dog lumps.
Absolutely.
That's absolutely mind-blowing. Right, what else can you show us in here?
Well, I think over here there's some front uprights that have just had the axles installed. So yeah, front upright for you.
I mean, it's a really organic looking shape. So has this been 3D printed or machined?
Well, it's actually been machined.
Right.
So it's machined aluminium that's then coated for corrosion resistance.
Right.
And then the axles are a type of steel.
And then is this a Formula One style wheel hub, where the wheel nut goes on?
Similar. I mean, it's a wheel with pegs in it. The pegs engage in the holes in the axle here.
Okay.
And then single central wheel nut that locks the wheel on. Your brake disc is then splined onto the outside of the axle.
Yeah. I mean, it's not a featherweight component, but it's dealing with a massive amount of force.
Amount of load going through it.
Yeah, and it's still, for the size of it, it's a big old piece of metal. It's not that heavy.
Yeah.
Everything about motorsport engineering makes car components beautiful, doesn't it?
Yes.
Do you still get a kick out of looking at that and thinking, that's quite gorgeous?
You do. I mean, this is one of the chunkier components, to be perfectly honest, on the car. Is when you look at some of the smaller hydraulics bits and that sort of thing, you think, wow, that is really stunning.
This might be like asking you about a favourite child, but do you have a favourite component on the RB17?
No, I think I've found through my career that I tend to have least favourite components rather than favourites.
The bit that's broken.
It's the bit that's broken. It's the bit that's ruined your Sunday afternoon because you've seen a car stop.
Right.
And then you come in on Monday and spend the next months working out what to do with.
So your favourite component is the next stronger, lighter one?
Yeah, the one that doesn't give you any grief.
Nice. Very cool. Now, hydraulics, not traditionally the sexiest part of a fast car, but since you've mentioned them, you've brought us into the hydraulics room because this component is amazing. It looks like a sort of robot's heart. Please take it away. What are we looking at?
I suppose robot heart's quite a good description, really, because I mean, it's the control part of the front end of the hydraulics of the car. So it has the valves. It's the manifold that distributes the fluid into the different functions. So hydraulics controls the suspension, hydraulics powers the steering, and so you have the valves and the pressurized fluid to actually spread out to those different areas.
Yeah, so it's worth mentioning that a big coup for RB17 is the fact that it's got active suspension, which has been banned in Formula One since '93. That's obviously going to allow a huge amount of adaptation for the aero platform and the suspension stiffness, and allows you to do very, very cool things. But that all depends on hydraulic fluid, and this component is just a genuine thing of beauty. It's a shame it'll be covered up in the car.
It is. I mean,
and it, as you'd expect, it's unbelievably light. I know that doesn't come across on camera, but just look if you can see in there the intricacy of the way this has all been machined from solid, from one piece. It has this organic quality to it, like it looks like it's come from some sort of hybrid machine animal from the future.
The metal is very much wrapped around the fluid that's in there. So you want as little metal as you can just to contain that fluid. Fluid's at very high pressure. I mean, we're talking 200 plus bar system. So the forces involved are pretty high. You do need a decent amount of metal there, but it's absolutely minimised to keep the car weight down.
And when we hear in Formula One commentary, when we're watching the racing and it says, oh, this car's retired due to a hydraulics failure, now they don't have hydraulic active suspension. What's the hydraulics doing in a modern F1 car?
So pretty much everything that needs high force. So you use hydraulics to power the power steering, to open the clutch, to lock the differential, to change gear, to drive the engine throttles. There's probably something else on the turbo as well.
So it's very fundamental, and that's why you see cars retiring with hydraulic problems.
And you don't have a massive reservoir of fluid. So if you have a small hydraulic leak,
come on.
It's all right. It's only a tie wrap saddle. If you have a small hydraulic leak, then the pressure in the system, you lose your spare fluid very quickly, and then the pressure decays, and then you can't control all those functions on the car. And no throttles, you don't go very far.
Understood. I don't understand this. I'm going to give it back to you before I knock another piece off it.
It's fine.
He's going to bill me for that.
Meanwhile, the suspension was having a bumpy ride.
So this is a purpose-built room to contain this wild structure, which is, as you can see, working on the suspension. Now, Rob, before we get into the suspension, I just want to talk about the frame that this lives in, because it literally looks like someone's Victorian railway bridge somewhere is missing some girders. What on earth is this?
We call it the bed plate, and then we have two load walls.
Right, bed plate and load walls.
Yeah, and it's just fundamentally a very stiff structure that we can mount things to and then put the loads that the car sees through them.
You're telling me, I mean, the thickness of these girders here beggars belief. It looks like it must weigh tens of tons.
I think it does, yeah.
You need that when you're talking about setting up the suspension on a car that's got to support, I guess, what, 1,200 kilos plus of downforce?
A little bit more, yeah, 12, yeah, around that.
Yeah. So what will you learn from running the dampers on here?
So we're really doing a durability test. So it's basically trying to make sure everything lasts as long as we want it to, so that before we run the car, we prove out as many things as we can in the lab, like you see here with the front suspension, so that we then take a car testing that's already fundamentally reliable.
Yeah. I mean, this looks to be set in the British B-Road setting at the moment, but if you wanted to, say, type in simulate a lap of Spa or Silverstone, could it do that?
Yeah, so we will be able to do that, and we'll also be using this to work on the active suspension. So at the moment this is working in a fairly passive mode, but we will be using it to drive the active side of the system as well.
Yeah, so we've got front suspension here. What are we looking at over there?
Rear suspension over there.
Makes sense. Yeah, it's so heavy duty, and I have to say, compared to some of the other stuff you showed us, the carbon, that beautiful hydraulic piece of componentry, this is kind of reassuringly heavy duty.
Yeah, and I mean, at the end of the day, we don't need rig bits to be light. So yeah, it's kind of, there's no, you don't win any performance by making your rig bits all beautifully machined and very lightweight, so we try to just do it as efficiently as possible.
Sure. Yeah, this is, I just can't get over this structure, and yeah, if you break something here, I can't imagine the forces that have gone through it. Wow. Okay, so gearbox dyno, with no engine in here to spin the gearbox, how does this work?
Yeah, so we've got effectively 3 electric motors. So one electric motor that represents the engine, the V10,
right,
and then 2, one representing each side of the car on the backs of the wheels. And so you've got the engine motor that's putting in the power, and then the other 2 motors are absorbing the power, representing the inertia of the car.
Right. Have you blown anything up yet?
What, recently? Or? No, I mean, we haven't had any major blow-ups on the RB17. I mean, this dyno is quite old now. We put this in probably, I don't know, 15 years ago on the F1 side, and so yeah, there's been plenty of swarf generated over the years.
And when will a V10 meet that lovely gearbox we saw earlier for the first time?
So I think it's due to happen in January. So testing the engine in isolation at Cosworth, as we saw yesterday, and then testing the gearbox in isolation here. And you want to get them both functioning and doing everything they need to do by themselves before you then bring them together, and then you get them talking to each other. And when I say talking to each other, literally, so when you want to change gear, you want the engine to cut slightly, and so it's getting the control system and all the actuation systems on both engine and gearbox to work in harmony.
Makes sense. Well, Rob, thank you so much for showing us around your office. I know it's still a work in progress, but it's been fantastic to have a look around. I just wanted to end up next to the RB17 because we know this thing is still herring its way through development. When will we next see a car running, and when, in your eyes, will it be finished?
So we're building the car early next year, aiming to have it on track around sort of probably end of March, beginning of April, something like that. And then when will it be finished? Well, we're aiming to have first customer deliveries probably 12 months after that. So it's all sort of getting pretty real pretty soon.
Well, hopefully we'll see a demo lap at some Formula 1 Grand Prix next year, maybe?
Yeah, we haven't finalised plans, but we'll certainly be demoing at a range of tracks, whether it be F1 tracks or whether it be Goodwood, places like that, we'll see.
I think no lap record is safe. Rob, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Pleasure to come around and see the Red Bull space station.
Thank you very much.
Now it's time to detour over to Cosworth headquarters to hear the RB17's 4.5 litre, 15,000 RPM V10 on the dyno. In this dyno room, somewhere in a Northampton industrial estate, the GMA T50's V12 first screamed into life. So did the Aston Martin Valkyrie's V12 and the Bugatti Tourbillon's V16. But what about an engine with 10 cylinders? the engine's just sitting in its warm-up phase right now, doing about 4,500 RPM, holding a incredibly smooth idle for it. I think right now it's only producing around 100 horsepower, so we've got some revs to go. Now up to 7,000 RPM, getting a bit more of that V10 howl. So smooth. It's got that mixture that we love from V10s. It's got the musicality and yet the savagery. All Formula One cars should sound like that.
Bruce Wood is the managing director of Cosworth, so there's no one better to talk to about the company's latest British hypercar project.
Yeah, so when the whole project began, we didn't land immediately on a V10. I think it was somewhere in 2021 that we first started having discussions with Adrian Red Bull, and the sort of concept began to take some shape. It was a couple of years from memory between those early discussions and when we actually sort of started in anger. And in that period, then on and off, I do remember talking to Adrian every few months. You know, at one point he was very keen on something more Formula One-esque, a V6 highly boosted turbo, and we did a lot of work looking at the sort of thermal efficiency we could achieve with that. And then we looked at V12s, normally aspirated briefly, and we sort of went all around these loops. He's very good at pushing you and pushing you and pushing you until you're at the point where you sort of say, well, we're not interested now, because it's impossible. And if you get to that point, then he says, okay, we'll go back to the stage before. And I think he's very good at judging when, you know, say, sort of pushing us on an engineering level, when he's pushed us a little bit too far and we become sort of disengaged because you sort of think, well, it's a bit silly now. And then he brings it back a step. And at that point, he has very cleverly pushed you to the absolute limit of the ability of what you know how to do, but he hasn't pushed you beyond it. And that is actually very satisfying to work with them. So you know, I would be the first to recognise that he has pushed us further than maybe we would have gone without it. I have to say, personally, I always felt like we were going around a lap and we were going to end up back to normally aspirated V10, because I know that is very much Adrian's favourite period of Formula One, that sort of early 2000s, very high revving V10s. You know, it is a very evocative noise. It's an exciting time. So we landed on the normally aspirated V10. It is completely ground up. Every part of it is brand new. Regrettably, perhaps no part of it is shared with any other engine from a commercial perspective. Again, interestingly, it shares more probably with actually the engines we were doing, the V10s we were doing in Formula One sort of 20 plus years ago, than it perhaps does with other hypercar engines we've done more recently. And particularly because, unlike those engines, it is destined just for the track. So it's uninhibited by any requirement for emissions legislation, which is the biggest thing which drives the design of the hypercar engines. With the hypercar engines, you very much start with a combustion system and then you clothe it with an engine. With this, a little less so, because, say, we didn't have that issue of needing to meet emissions. The capacity of the engine is derived pretty much from the power that you want to achieve and the revs that you want to run. And so that combination led us to 1,000 horsepower quite quickly. So that then defined, say, the capacity and then the cylinder size, and everything else falls out from there. Again, a thing that was very important in going into this program was that you don't need to have an army of technicians to run it. I think the customers for these sort of cars, clearly they are willing and able to fund the purchase price, but I think inevitably some of the enjoyment is taken away if you have to plan 6 months in advance when you want to use it. The engine is very much designed to a target, and we decided from day one that 15,000 was the limit. So if we wanted to run faster, then we would need a different architecture of engine, different piston to retain the piston speeds as acceptable to an acceptable margin. One of the things that drove the 15,000 limit, as you say, back in the day they used to run to 18, and in fact the V8 back in the day we ran to 20. So we could have gone more, but back to what we were just saying about the sort of usability and operability of the engine. Again, back in the day when we were running 18,000, a race weekend would be 3 engines a car. You'd have a test engine, you'd have a qualifying engine, and then you'd have a race engine. And so the engines were doing 300-400 kilometers, and that's all then for a rebuild. So one of the targets for this was that it should have, in sort of track car standards of this sort of car, that it should have an extraordinarily high rebuild interval. To that basis, it'll run on pump gasoline, and I think customers will be delighted to find that it's up in the many thousands of kilometers, up in the 10,000 kilometers, depending on driving style, etc., etc. But that was a large part of choosing the 15,000. If you start creeping up much above 15,000, you start pulling down the life, and that was a very important target to everybody concerned, that it should have a long rebuild interval. So this engine, as it stands, is absolutely exclusive to Red Bull. The foreground IP, so the specific design of this engine belongs to Red Bull. So other than being in another Red Bull car in the future, you won't see this elsewhere. In terms of would Cosworth ever do another V10? Well, that's within our wheelhouse if somebody wanted one, but it would be a different engine to this for sure.
So you're up to date on the RB17's progress. In the past 18 months, we've seen the first static model. We've set a lap time in Red Bull Simulator that would have put us next to Max on the grid at Silverstone, and now we've brought you the full in-depth factory tour. Cannot wait to see and hear this thing running out in the wild soon, so stay tuned.